Good morning, beautiful people. Welcome back on this triumphant Tuesday for what is going to be nothing short of another jam-packed daily market update. And I think the best place for us to start this one is with Nvidia, with DeepSeek, kind of looking at how that situation has progressed. Yesterday, the markets broadly sold off due to the news around DeepSeek and how this is kind of upsetting the balance and order of the likes of Nvidia, which makes up 6% of the S&P 500. And some of the other sort of chip manufacturing, AI-related stocks out there kind of undermined them in some ways. I think there's a lot that doesn't make sense with that whole situation. A lot of things don't add up in regards to their claims of how much it's cost them to facilitate it. So we will be looking at that. I think you're going to get this epic bounce, in my opinion. I think Nvidia is going to go higher. We certainly have a higher target for it, despite this pullback, which has left a gap, which is likely going to get filled in the coming days. And then we're going to look at maybe a quick take on this. You know, you've got to think DeepSeek's coming out of China. We're talking about banning TikTok, which has got Chinese elements to it or concerns around it. DeepSeek would likely be a 100x more intrusive. Are they really going to enable that? And then we're going to talk about some interesting things that are kind of going on broadly. Now, Trump, over the past 24 hours, has proposed tariffs to replace federal income tax. Now, I can only but watch this in awe as somebody in the UK, and the UK government, in my opinion, are doing everything to penalise their own citizens, whilst it seems that Trump is doing the opposite for his. And that makes me very sad. I love this country. I love everything. You know, I spend a lot of time in the sort of Scottish Highlands and walking, and you know, there's nothing sort of sings to me like getting up early on a nice crisp British morning. And it seems like we're just going one way. But we'll talk about this, and we're going to talk about the ramifications this has for the markets, because 62% of Americans own stocks. Now, if they're not getting taxed and they have more money in their pocket, where's that going to go? And this is that idea of sort of trickle-down economics, if you will, which Liz Truss tried to do. And I ultimately think the global sort of banking cartel very much said, no. We don't want people getting rich and doing well for themselves and having an easier life. We want to keep those taxes high. And ultimately keep feeding into this sort of system that I think at this point everybody's looking at going, well, our lives aren't getting better. You know, if you look at taxes, they go like this. And standards, depending on what metrics you look at, sorry for the autofocus there, guys, are certainly dropping, certainly in big cities here in the UK. So we will talk about that because it has real ramifications. Then we're going to look at Bitcoin. We're going to look at the crypto space. I think it's on for an epic bounce. I think the candles that we got, certainly the wicks on the back end of yesterday's kind of panic is very telling. I bought the dip yesterday. I bought sort of more HBAR, more XLM, some other things out there. If you want to unlock what I hold, do consider becoming a patron. I also bought one of our stocks out there that we think is going to do like a 30x from where it currently is. And actually that's to an initial target. I think it's going to go above and beyond. So do take part in that journey. We're also launching the new platform for the public very soon. We're trialing it out with Patreon members as we speak now. And then we'll talk about what's going on with Ripple and their New York money market license. Not money market license, really sort of money license. And also Scott Bessent has now been named the Treasury Secretary. And of course, he's quite a pro-crypto individual. And this is the most pro-crypto we've said. Despite yesterday's news, we've got this amazing sort of fundamental story for the cryptocurrency space. But let us get into it all. We've been sort of rambling on about what we're going to talk about now for 3 minutes. Let's dive into it. Now, this came out of Nvidia yesterday. Nvidia calls China's DeepSeek R1 model an excellent AI advancement. DeepSeek yesterday in that announcement really sort of upset the balance of things. Nvidia, you know, you can see this sort of sell-off that Nvidia had. Remember, I still have higher targets for Nvidia. This trend has not been invalidated yet, and I think with this gap, you're going to get a close of that, and that's going to mean a bounce for risk broadly. So it kind of undermined, certainly when you talk about costs and things like this, the kind of status that Nvidia holds from a price point of view, and also, you know, Vanex Semiconductors. There was a lot of things, the ETF, there was a lot of things related to AI and certainly the facilitation of it that sold off. And interesting for me, DeepSeek raised a lot of questions. If we can have an open source AI model that anybody can use and utilize, well, compute becomes a kind of key component to that. And actually there is this whole area in the cryptocurrency space called DeepIM, which is decentralized sort of physical infrastructure, which I think is a massive opportunity along with AI. So I hold a number of AI projects, a number of DeepIM projects that nobody really talks about, literally. And I ultimately think there's something major coming for this industry. AI is a real innovation. It's always, every innovation is always overhyped, guys, but there is something fundamental and tangible here. So Nvidia makes up 6% of the stock market. Obviously, this sold off. There was a number of other plays in there, and it really leaned on risk broadly. And markets don't like uncertainty. They don't like down days. But generally, not only do I think Nvidia is going to go higher and actually close this gap, and that's going to mean a sort of a bounce for risk broadly. This gap will get closed, in my opinion. And actually, you'll likely see continuation to that $184 price prediction we have from Nvidia. But the stock market also now has a gap that it's likely going to close. And it actually started to close it, and we've still got higher targets for the S&P 500. NASDAQ, or the US 100, actually did really well. And generally, I think the stock market is in pretty good standings and expecting, or certainly I'm expecting, continuation on the back end or broadly. So, and have a dollar scenario that sees all that play out. I think this was a great take by the Wolf of Wall Street. Explain this to me. The US is considering a ban on TikTok because it's Chinese spyware, but everyone is downloading a Chinese AI app that would be 1000x more dangerous because of the information people use it for. Yeah, I think that says it all. I think, it was a kind of an announcement, a shock. One thing you'll learn, the longer you spend in markets, certainly investing and trading them, although we don't recommend anybody trades unless they've gone, they've proven the equation. Otherwise, you're just wasting money, in my opinion. Markets are drama queens. They absolutely are. Whatever, they'll always over-exaggerate and under-exaggerate things. And that's because human beings are fundamentally behind them. And we're quite dramatic, I think. And one thing you kind of need to train yourself to be is stoic in the markets. And I say that, I'm probably not a great prototype to be a trader or an investor because I'm quite an emotional person. I think we all are. And I think it's actually, in some ways, a benefit, not a blessing, not a curse. But the way that I can sort of stay stoic in the markets because I have a great technical understanding of them, and I know where they are and I know where I believe they're going, and that's my guiding light, not news flows, short-term price action, and that's what this channel is all about, helping you guys kind of gain that lever on the markets also. Let's now talk about what Trump's doing, and then we'll bring it back into the cryptocurrency space because, and we'll read the quick tape before we play the clip. This is all over Twitter today. Trump proposes tariff replacement for federal income tax. President Trump has proposed the abolition of federal income tax, suggesting it to be replaced by tariffs on foreign nations. During a speech at an event hosted by the Congressional Institute, Trump highlights the economic prosperity of the US from 1870 to 1913. Attributing it to the tariff-based revenue system, his proposal aimed to enrich American citizens by taxing foreign countries, instead referencing historical examples where tariffs funded significant national projects. So I believe there's a federal tax, a state tax. There's multiple taxes in the US, but the federal one, he's floating the idea, he's not confirmed any of this, of getting rid of that and replacing it with tariffs on foreign nations. Now that's interesting, and I think the interesting thing for me before we play this clip is actually the fact that I think nobody spends money better than they spend their own money. I think that's the problem with government. They're spending other people's money, so they don't really care. And a lot of the times, their jobs exist, government jobs exist because of a problem that actually they don't want to fix. Look at our NHS, for example. There's lots of really big, high-paid individuals that are there to fix problems that jobs exist because those problems are there. So the incentivization, when a man's working or a woman's working for their own pursuit, they're going to do a better job than perhaps what else. And nobody spends money better than they spend their own and more carefully. And governments are perhaps the most liberal spenders of other people's monies ever. But currently, 62% of Americans own stocks, which is a 20-year high. And if there's more money in their pockets, well, what are they going to do with it? They're going to invest it in the markets. And this is part of that kind of economic boom that Trump is talking about. And of course, crypto is increasingly becoming a staple part of the markets. And that's only going to accelerate with all the 33 or 34 now ETFs we have in the pipelines. So let's go ahead and listen to what Trump says. Then we're going to finish this off with a little bit of charts to kind of simplify things and understand where we are and continue to put our bullish foot forwards. And we've suggested this is a long market. It's an uptrending market. And actually, it's got a lot higher to go, in my opinion. And then we'll finish off with a little bit of Ripple news. So let's dive into Trump and what he had to say on income tax and potentially replacing it with tariffs.
America is going to be very rich again, and it's going to happen very quickly. It's time for the United States to return to the system that made us richer and more powerful than ever before. Do you know, the United States in 1870 to 1913, all tariffs, and that was the richest period in the history of the United States, relatively speaking. In other words, relatively. And they set up the Great Tariff Commission of 1887, and this commission had one function: what to do with all the money that we took in. It was so enormous that they had no idea. It was a blue ribbon committee. It was set up 1887, and what to do with all of the money that we had. And again, Teddy Roosevelt was a beneficiary, because when McKinley was killed, he took over this vast sum of money, and he did all of those national parks and all of the other things. And I'm not knocking him, but he was given a vast amount of money. And that was all made through tariffs. We had no income tax. The income tax came in 1913. As I said in my speech last week, instead of taxing our citizens to enrich foreign nations, we should be tariffing and taxing foreign nations to enrich our citizens. Does that make sense, right?
I do have to applaud that myself. I know not everyone's a Trump fan. Nirvana's not for this world. So I ultimately have my own political ideologies, which will come through, unfortunately, for some of you that perhaps are adverse to it. But that doesn't mean I hate you. I love you. And actually, if we all thought the same way, the world would be exceptionally boring. But I'm all about what he's saying there. I truly am. Because, you know, we shouldn't be... like in the UK, for example, Keir was asked a question, Westminster or Davos? And he said Davos. He said, so he's for this globalist agenda that involves taking money out of our pockets as citizens and giving it to the broader, you know, global system, which has all sorts of problems with it. Trump's doing the opposite. He's kind of nationalistic on this front. And when you say the word nationalistic, it gets sort of related to a whole load of things that actually it's not. Nationalistic really for me just means you're all about your country and your and the people within it, and you want them to do well and have them as a priority. And I think actually we're seeing that with him. And I think the ramifications, of course, is the vast majority of Americans own stocks, certainly the upper half. If they have more money, they're going to put more money into it. And this is, you know, kind of an economic, you know, the economy will grow because they're going to be putting more money into it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And this is this kind of idea of like economics that I'm actually more for. Again, Nirvana's not for this world. There are problems potentially going to be with it. But we shall see. I'm liking what I'm seeing coming out of America. In fact, if they look to lower interest rates, I'll be asking you guys for some good suggestions on where to potentially live, which is a shame because, like I say, I do love the UK. Let's talk about Bitcoin. Let's talk about the crypto space. Obviously, Bitcoin was a fatality or a casualty. It wasn't a fatality because we're still alive. We're still here of what took place with DeepSeek and everything else. And we very much just range bound at the moment, Bitcoin, unfortunately. You know, we can turn this into a bit of a range that we're now in, and ultimately won't be long before we break through. Look at the sort of buying candle here. This was reiterated on most cryptocurrencies. Let's look at one of our favorite positions, Hedera. Remember, we still think this is going to absolutely explode. Let's take a look at the likes of XRP. If I go to meetings, you know, you can see this doing quite well today. Very telling of the kind of environment we're in. Remember, we've got a lot of central bank movement today, but to stick on Bitcoin in the broader picture, this will break through. We've got a hell of a lot of technical reasons, as well as fundamental reasons, but technicals trump fundamentals for me in regards to why we think this is going higher. When we look at the total market cap, this is just doing what it should do. Broke out, consolidating around an all-time high before pushing higher, and we've also got technical targets suggesting that. And when we look at the total too, this is just consolidating around all-time highs, and we've shown you hundreds of examples, not hundreds, but tens of examples. We could show you hundreds of examples of how charts take all-time highs. This is where that cup and handle, I see people throwing cup and handles all over the place. The caliber of technical analysis, understanding on crypto Twitter and YouTube, just move out of the way, please. You know, and somebody called me egotistical in yesterday's video because I was calling people ding-dongs for leverage trading. I'm honest, you know, and I think we're all egotistical. And I would rather be honest about that than try and pretend I'm somebody that I'm not. You know, we're all born sinners, and it's our responsibility to do something about that if we choose to, and that's where free will comes in. Anyway, what the hell is going on all in crypto? You you know, this is really goiling up for something monumental. This aligns with everything that we've looked at in the crypto space, so just hang in there. To finish things off on a little bit of sort of XRP and Brad Garlinghouse news. Brad Garlinghouse congratulating Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. He'll be an incredible leader for America. I think so. I'm confident he'll enact common sense economic policies working with administration and Congress to grow the US tech and crypto incentives or innovation. And also 2025 kicks off with a big win for crypto in the US and Ripple's growth. New MTL, which is essentially a monetary license in New York and Texas. TX, is that Texas? New customers onboarded and ramping up hiring across the US. So watch out for XRP, guys. I think it's going to be a real monster. Also XLM, the underloved or underappreciated sort of little brother, if you will, that I think is going to fundamentally change the world in many ways. That's it from us, guys. We've rambled on for 16 minutes now. I'm going to love and leave you. Have a fantastic Tuesday, guys. I'll see you all in tomorrow's daily market update. See you then.